At Mitsooz, we connect you with artists by going beyond the finished piece and into the story behind it. I'm Starah Dixon, founder of Mitsooz, and these are our studio dialogues, conversations with artists and creators that reveal the process, inspiration, and personal narratives behind their work. Today, we're featuring Nersel Muehlen, a portrait artist based in California whose work explores identity, belonging, and the emotional connections that exist across cultures and generations. Working in oil on linen and informed by classical techniques, her portraits balance technical precision with emotional sensitivity, creating deeply human studies of presence, memory, and connection. So now, without further ado, our studio dialogue with Nersel Muehlen.
Hi, I'm Nersel, and I specialize in oil paintings. I try to paint subjects that I find an emotional connection to. So I've painted portraits, figurative, landscape, still art, but my heart always goes back to portraiture. I like to paint not just a person, but the story behind the person, their history, their culture. For me, painting portraiture is a connection, a conversation, and most of all, listening. My medium is oil. I only do oil paints. It's a very versatile medium. It allows me to continue that conversation. The process takes a long time, and that gives me time and opportunity to take the painting where it needs to go. While I paint, it's a conversation between me and the subject, but once it's done, it's a conversation. The conversation continues between the collector and the painting. So I've been painting for over 10 years, but I was always involved in art. Even though I studied political science and business, my heart was always in art. So the creative aspect was always there. Thinking about my past jobs, the part that I most enjoyed was the design aspect, and the creative calling was always there. So I finally had the courage to leave the business world and put all my time and effort into my creative work, and which has been very fulfilling and rewarding.
So, you've definitely trained at several highly respected institutions in New York City. So, I wanted to know, how did those experiences shape your foundation as an artist?
My first teacher was a master in old masters, and she actually learned it from an elderly gentleman who has learned the trade for a long time. He's been doing it for 50 years, and he passed it on to my teacher, and my teacher passed it on to me. So I was very lucky to have that teacher to work one on one with her. I think in this time and age, some of the old masters' techniques are being lost, and I think it's important to continue that tradition. There's a reason why there are some pieces in the museums and galleries that have been around for hundreds of years. And we're always drawn to those pieces because they're timeless, they're universal. And I wanted to continue that tradition with a modern twist, with a little bit more contemporary flavor to the classical traditional techniques. In addition to training with this master artist, for years, I took classes at the New York Academy of Art, Parsons School of Design. I also tried to touch a lot of different art forms. I did nude drawing, I did jewelry making, and pottery. I think a lot of those disciplines helped me in my creative process because art, I think, is multidimensional. And I've been teaching art for over 10 years as well, specifically oil painting. So the analogy I give to my students when I teach is, imagine you have your canvas, you have your paints, and you have your brushes. So we have only three tools to create something that didn't exist before. Imagine that your canvas is a piece of clay and your brush is your carving tool. That visualization of the 3D object helps me and my students create the depth. So it's not flat. There's depth, there's life, there's dimension to it. So my education helped me not only with the technique, but also the visualization tools. Because at the end of the day, you're standing in front of a white blank canvas and you have your paints and you have your brushes. And that visualization helps with the connection with the subject, as well as where you visualize the painting going, where it's going to end up. It's kind of like writing a story. You don't know how it's going to end up. You don't know what colors you're going to pick. You don't know what you're going to emphasize. And that journey kind of takes you there.
And at what point did you realize that portraiture would become your primary artistic language?
I was drawn to it. I'm drawn to people. I'm drawn to faces. I'm drawn to stories. I'm very much drawn to eyes, windows of the soul. In the beginning, you kind of don't know what you want to focus. So you try a lot of different things while you paint different subjects. When you get into the flow and you forget the time, you forget the space, that's where you want to be. And for me, that was portraiture. I always go back to portraiture. So you visit a lot of places and there's this one place that feels like home and you keep going back to it. For me, that's portraiture.
So, what does it mean to you to not just paint like what someone looks like, but the depth, as you were saying before,
Yes.
behind this?
So when I pick subjects to paint, I make sure I read the stories behind it, the culture, the environment. I usually play music that's relevant to that specific portrait. It gets me in the mood, it prepares me. Play jazz, I play ethnic music. Like I painted an Afghan girl and I played Afghan music. I look at pictures of costumes and sometimes I read about the history and the culture because I want to immerse myself. I want to feel like I'm there with that person when I paint that image because it's not just an image. And my goal is for the collector to take all that story, the culture, the heritage, all of that. So I have to get in the mood. I want to feel that I'm there with that person because painting from life is not practical in this time and age. So this is as close as it gets to painting from life for me.
And so, one of the things that I do know that you specialize in is painting exclusively like in oil on linen. So, why did you choose that?
A lot of artists or people think oil is intimidating, but it's not. It's actually a wonderful medium to use. It allows me to revisit, to change. It's not static, it's fluid. It doesn't dry fast. That gives me opportunity to, going back to the clay analogy, to remold it. Gives me more time to work on the painting. I guess I enjoy the slow process. If anything, painting has taught me to be patient. So if you're patient, oil painting is a wonderful medium. You can rework it, you can layer it, you can mold it. I think it's a wonderful medium. I enjoy working with it. And linen and cotton canvas is just very high quality. I choose the highest quality canvas. It absorbs the oil. The oil doesn't sit on the surface. If it sits on the surface, it becomes what we call, it can become muddy, as we artists call. So the top quality material allows you to create better. So you don't have to worry about, it just gives me more room. So I pick the best quality oils. My brushes are all handmade, which is hard to find, and they're natural hair, handmade. I ordered them from London. They're wonderful. So experiencing different materials and surfaces, I found out that it's like baking. If your ingredients are good, your product is good. So I pick the best ingredients, best oil, best brushes, and top quality canvas. It just makes it easier for me. So I don't have to worry about quality. Quality is already there.
And it's really cool to be able to see like the intentionality that you have behind all of this. So when it comes to your process, what does a typical studio day look like for you?
So the creative process is, it's interesting. Your mind has to be there. You have to be in the right mood. But sometimes, even if you're not in the right mood, you grab your brush and you start and you just get there. Oil painting and creative process for me, it's important to know when to start. And it's also important to know when to stop. Because if you push it, it becomes forced. And you can see it in your brush strokes. So for me, it's important that it needs to flow. It's not forced. I'm a pretty disciplined artist. I paint almost every day. Sometimes it's just a touch up. Sometimes it's hours and hours of standing in front of my easel and painting. I kind of let the painting dictate how long I need to work on it. If I get impatient, I work on two paintings at the same time. So I would do a touch up on one painting, I would put it aside, let it dry, because when you work with layers, you have to let the layers dry in between. And I grab another painting if the urge is there to paint. So that's the creative process. It's the urge. You don't have a choice but to create. So then I grab another painting, I start something new, or I revisit another painting that I have to do touch ups on. So, but I do paint almost every day.
So I know that you're very disciplined with how you create. So I wanted to know, how do you know when you've hit a wall?
That's a very good question. When you're not enjoying it anymore. If the joy ends, it happens, even if you're doing something that you absolutely love. If it becomes more of a creative process, is not a job. It's something that comes from inside and you have to do it. Having worked in the business world, I know like you have to show up and you have to do it. It's a job. So I know when to stop when the joy ends.
Okay, so when we look at you going from corporate to art, being working on art, what would you say you took away from that outside of course, discipline, if anything?
This will sound maybe funny, but I learned, I guess, that yes, discipline and showing up and being responsible. I get commissions and I get deadlines for commissions. It may be a present for a Christmas or birthday. So, yes, I stick to the deadlines. And so I learned that from the business world. But I also learned to go against what I learned in the business world. So the business world is very much results oriented, the end product. However you get there, you get there. It's the end product, it's the results, it's the reports. You're as good as your last quarter. Painting is the opposite. It's the process that's important. So when I'm painting, if I'm enjoying the process and I'm in the flow, I'm listening to my music, I'm just in the zone, I know that painting is going to be a nice product. So I never think about the end result. I don't think about the product. The product comes at the end of that joyful process. It's a mind shift going from business to creative. Yes, you learn, the sales process, the marketing, your reports, all of those are great because at the end of the day, it is a business too. But as I said, I learned more not to focus on the result, not to put too much pressure on myself, being able to stop when I'm tired and I'm not enjoying it anymore. And I know it's time to put the brush down. I can always continue tomorrow.
And it seems that you really follow like your intuition as a whole. So like is there a particular stage in the process that you find the most meditative?
I think it's the whole thing is meditative, but layering the paint, layering the oil paint, and when it starts coming together, the first layer is always, we call it the ugly stage. And we artists, we can judge ourselves a little too harshly. It's just the first layer. And so we call it the ugly stage. And I learned not to judge myself too harshly. One thing I do is sometimes you turn the painting over so you don't look at it all the time. Because if you look at it, you want to fix this, you want to fix that. But sometimes you just want to turn it over. For instance, you see in movies, like artists would put a drape, like a blank sheet over the painting. The reason for that was not just you don't want to show it to people when it's not ready or you let it dry, but it's also you don't want to look at it too. So every morning you come back, you turn the canvas over, you have fresh set of eyes. You're excited about your painting again. So for me, the meditative stage is just the layering of the oil paint and seeing how it's taking shape and how it becomes alive for me.
Especially when it comes to your art. Like I would say that one of the biggest things is you can see the emotions, like literally emote out of it. So for you, how does empathy and technical precision work together inside of your practice?
Let me think about this.
Okay. As for you yourself, like what are three words that you would use to describe yourself
As an artist,
as an artist? Yes.
curiosity, wonder, the awe, when you see an image and you're like, the awe, the connection, I got to paint this, and just joy, just enjoying the whole process. Yeah.
And as far as your art itself, like what are three words that you would use?
I would say it's my work is, I hope that it's a bridge between cultures, between people. It evokes empathy and curiosity. When you do a gallery exhibition or an art show, people expect you to explain your art. I try not to do that because art is very subjective. My connection to that piece helped me paint that piece, create that piece. But as a collector, your connection comes from your lived experiences, your emotions. I'd like to leave that open. I don't want to impose my ideology or connection or my experiences onto the viewer, because your connection to that piece of art might be very different than my connection. Your reason for reaching out and picking that piece might be very different than mine. I'd like to let the collector and the audience pick their own story.
Okay. And with that, where do you imagine your paintings living in terms of like the collector?
Anywhere and everywhere people appreciate art. I think collecting art is should not be reserved to certain group of people. Art needs to be equitable. Anybody who appreciates beauty and talent and skill should be able to have art. Art needs to be more accessible, and I think online galleries are helping that, making it more accessible for everyone. Not everyone can afford to go to Sotheby's and bid millions of dollars. Art has become very elitist, and that needs to be reversed. Because when I studied classical art, I learned that, almost everyone had art in their homes. They just got whatever they could afford. When I did exhibitions, I get viewers from all around the world. I noticed some countries were more appreciative of art because it was more equitable. For instance, I got a lot of like Russian viewers. They appreciate art. They always have art on their walls, and it's more available and accessible. I think art is for everyone who appreciates it, for every wall.
So being invited to the exhibit for the Faces of the World in the UN is
Yes.
clearly a huge milestone. Can you like walk us through that and just, yeah.
Yeah, that was actually interesting. I did a show at the New York Art Expo. A lady approached me. She was from Brazil. And then we talked about my work, and she introduced herself. And she said she owns an art gallery in New York City. We started the conversation at the expo, and then we carried the conversation after the expo. And she reached out and said, there is this exhibition that we are a big part of. We're one of the sponsors at the United Nations. It's called Earth, and your Faces of the World collection fits into that theme. Would you be interested? And I was very excited. So I had a wall at the United Nations. That was fantastic. Very exciting. They had a lot of rules. So no marketing, no prices, just the names of the pieces and the artist's name. So I had to stay within the boundaries, respect the rules. This was more like a nonprofit educational art appreciation. It was open to everyone who worked at the UN, everyone who visited the UN, was somewhat limited to the outsiders because of the rules and regulations and safety concerns. But the exhibition stayed there for almost a month. That was very interesting. I think it was the right place, it was the right time. It was very exciting for me.
Okay, so when looking back, are there any moments in your career that felt especially pivotal to or affirming to you?
So pivotal would be when I first started painting, I did not think of it as a business or commercial. I painted because I wanted to paint. And I think the first pivotal moment for me was my friends and neighbors and friends' friends approaching me and saying, can I buy this painting? Or could you paint this for me? Or can you teach me how to paint? The demand came from outside and the offers started rolling in. I didn't do any marketing. People would just tell each other. They would come to my gallery and they say, I want to buy this painting. And I didn't paint that piece to sell it initially, but that was like for me, oh, there's interest in my art. People are interested. They want to collect my art. They want to own my art. So that was like a change in attitude for me. I still continued the creative process. I put more effort into my education, art education at that moment, because I want to produce things that are worthy of people's effort and time and interest. That was a moment I decided, okay, I'll put more time in my education. I'll make this better since people are interested in owning my creative work.
So, something you talked about earlier and also now is the importance of education. So, just wanted to know, when it comes to you teaching, like what does that do for you and why do you want to do that? Or why do you do that?
Yeah, I actually enjoy teaching a lot. I think people should not be stingy with the knowledge they have. This again goes back to continuing the art, that connection, the creativity. It's a lot of my students come to me. So they're different. They come to me for different reasons. They're either very interested in becoming an artist, the way I started 10, 15 years ago, or it's a channel for them. They have their day jobs and they don't use their creative side of their brain and they need that. So they come to me. It's kind of like meditation or therapy through art. And again, for me as an artist, I really like teaching. I want the traditional methods to continue, the old masters. There's great value in that. And also, as I said, I don't think we artists or teachers shouldn't be stingy with the information, the knowledge we have. So I have accumulated 15 years of art education, knowledge, experience, practice, and mistakes. So I want to pass that on to students who will take it and make it their own. So when I teach, I always tell them, I teach you the techniques, I teach you the way I paint, take what fits you and just leave what doesn't fit you. And hopefully the goal is for each student to develop their own style. Art gives you that freedom. Yeah. So teaching for me is very, very fulfilling. And I get to meet a lot of people from all walks of life. Art is it's the common denominator. It's a unifier. All kinds of people come to learn art, from the executive to the student it's very universal. That's why art needs to be available to everyone, everywhere.
And so, with that, when it comes to, let's say, like 2 to 5 years, like what would you want to ideally accomplish artistically?
So I'd like to try different styles and improve not the technique, but the style. Like I'd like to push the boundaries, and even if it feels uncomfortable sometimes, I push myself to try different things. I stick with the oil paint. I like the materials, but I think it's important to grow as an artist. So I push myself to try different ways of creating. I love the blending process. I love the glazing. So I pushed myself to paint a little less blended, a little bit maybe structured, like this piece here. So I tried to get out of that comfort zone and put the paint down and just leave it, because there's this urge to move the paint around and blend it, and it's very satisfactory. But sometimes you have to tell yourself, okay, try something else. Don't overblend. Let's see what this takes you. You may like it, you may not like it, but I think it's okay to try and to push yourself. Yeah, so that's my artistic goal, to push the boundaries, to try different things. And sometimes a color excites me, like a color that I haven't used in my paintings before. And it just gets my creative juices flowing. I experimented with neon colors, which you would think classical old masters obviously would not use, but it gives it a contemporary modern twist, and I like it. So just to stay in touch with what excites me. It's not just the subject. Sometimes it's a color, sometimes it's a light, sometimes it's I travel to a place and I come back and I just want to bring those feelings onto the canvas. So just to continue and to push.
So, what would be something that you would say when someone encounters your paintings that resonate with you?
I had at the New York Art Expo, I had a gentleman, an audience, who was walking around. There are a lot of pieces there. It's a pretty big place, and it can get overwhelming. So people don't spend too much time on each painting. They just walk by. Sometimes they just take pictures and walk. And this person stopped for a long time. He didn't say anything. He looked at my painting. He kneeled down. He was just so connected to the painting. And when he turned to me, he had tears in his eyes. And that connection, I tried to create that. Like, I cherish that moment. I cherish that moment.
That would be like the pinnacle of everything. I
Yes.
feel.
Yeah. So each time I paint, I want to go there and I want to imagine a collector having that connection. It was wonderful. It was really rewarding for me. I'll never forget that moment. Yeah.
Though I feel like this may kind of repeat a little bit, but what do you hope that your work leaves behind?
A conversation, again, a curiosity about different people, different parts of the world, different cultures, and it continues that conversation. The art piece is not an end. You don't just get it, you obtain it, you hang it, and it's over. You will get people visiting your home or your office space or wherever you hang the art. And hopefully, my pieces will continue that dialogue, that conversation. It will connect people. It will make them curious and it will open up new subjects. Another moment that I felt appreciated was, when I worked for 15 years and then I left my job and I told my boss, I want to create, I need to do this full time. He bought one of my pieces and he put it up in his office. So that kind of continued. He showed me appreciation of my work. And also, that piece continued the conversation that him and I were having, as well as he opened up new conversations that he and anybody who visited his office would have. Because he would talk about the artist, he would talk about the story, he would talk about the colors, and a really rewarding moment for me.
How do you find that both like empathy and just being technical in precision work together in your practice?
So the technical aspect is the tools and how to use the tools. Empathy leads the creativity. So it's the connection between the technique, between the tools, how to use the tools, the creative process. Because the technique is, how do you mix the colors? How do you layer it? How do you glaze? How long do you have to wait? How do you move paint around? The color theory, the light, the values. So all of that is the technique. But without the empathy, without that emotional connection to the subject, the technique is just a machine can do it. And we're not machines, right? Without empathy, there is no humanity, right? There's no creativity. So that's how it comes together.
Having grown up in Istanbul and later living in New York, how have those two environments basically helped shape the way that you see people, beauty, and identity?
Well, tremendously. I was born and raised in Istanbul, and Istanbul is a bridge between the Eastern and Western cultures. It's a very diverse city, and being it throughout history, many civilizations lived in Istanbul and left their fingerprints in art and architecture. And growing up in a vibrant city like Istanbul, I was always very curious about different people, different cultures, and how they lived and what kind of art they produced. I think the seeds of curiosity was planted there. Later, I moved to New York City and I lived there for over 20 years. And obviously, New York City is a very diverse cultural hub. Just reinforced the exposure and the curiosity, exploration of different people, different cultures, different costumes, kind of continued that curiosity through my art. It has a big imprint, both Istanbul and New York have big imprints in my art.
So then how, in what ways would you say your Turkish background has influenced your artistic perspective or the stories that you feel that you need to tell?
Istanbul is a city of 15 million people. You can take a walk down the street and see all kinds of people from all kinds of backgrounds, all kinds of costumes, and you see a wave of the East and the West blended together. So I think that has an influence on my art. I think it kind of led me to investigate and look into the differences and appreciate the differences. I can't imagine, I guess, living in a world where everybody looks the same and dresses the same would be such a boring world for an artist. I don't know if I should go into this now, but like the influence of social media, everybody starts looking the same, dressing the same, the hair is done the same, the makeup is the same. And I think that is a very dull world. I think that variety makes it exciting and interesting. So my Turkish background and my life experience in New York City just kind of made me appreciate the differences a lot more. It's just it's a more exciting life, and it's a more exciting creative process.
Okay. And even from that, I feel that in a lot of ways that also assists with the way that you give respect to aesthetics that when you're drawing them and the way that you're basically like showcasing the people and the emotions. What would you want to add on to that, I guess?
Growing up in Türkiye is you go to the mosques and you see these beautiful tile work, hand painted, painstakingly hand painted. So it gave me an appreciation of the craftsmanship all over the country in Türkiye. It's not just Istanbul. So you walk into a mosque and you see these hand painted tiles, and you start, even from a young age, you start appreciating the craftsmanship and how much effort has been in producing these artifacts. And you go to other parts of Turkey and you see these Greek and Roman remnants, and it's a clash of cultures. And it's so, what's the word, tintillating. You want to learn more about it. And you kind of start, as an artist, you imagine what were people wearing? How were they dressed? And what kind of art were they? You see the mosaics and the frescoes, and it's all blended together. It's kind of impossible to grow up in an environment like that and not appreciate art.
And that actually goes into also, as I said before, like the details that you put inside of it. So, my next question is also when it comes to questions about your artistry, what is one thing or two things that you wish someone would ask?
What made you paint this? Because you sit in front of a blank canvas. What's the trigger? What made you paint this? And then the emotional connection, like what kind of connection did you have to this painting while you were painting this? I guess those questions, because the techniques, the colors, all of that can be conveyed easily. But the dialogue is, why did you paint this? What made you paint this? What was the trigger? What made you move? Because as an artist, you want the collector to be moved too, because there was a drive. You were attracted to this piece. It's nice when the collectors approach me and say, why did you paint this? What was the motivation? What moved you? The key word is what moved you.
And what would you say usually moves you?
Human condition, because each portrait is a depiction of a human condition. Like this painting is called Resolve. And I try to title my paintings with one or two words. It's not just the face, it's not just the costume, the environment is important, but what is the story behind this?
And you're also very well known for like the gaze. And I always thought that that was a very fascinating, like fun fact about you, which actually we're going to ask next too. But why do you choose the eyes and the gaze?
Because that's how we connect with each other. The gaze, the eyes is what draws us to each other, especially in a world where we're losing the eye contact. A lot of the interaction is happening online. We're losing the human touch. We're losing that connection. We're wired from, even babies are wired to look at a face and read the eyes. The eyes are the first thing you look at, and that's where the initial connection happens. So for me, it's very important that the gaze is where I'd like to pull the audience into my painting. It's where the connection is made.
What is one fun fact or unexpected fact that people would not know about you that you would want to share?
I do listen to a lot of music when I paint. Sometimes I dance, and sometimes I have artifacts around me that belongs to that culture. It could be a piece of cloth. I was painting a woman from Bhutan, and she was wearing this ornate silk top. So I collected whatever silk I have, and I had to touch it and feel it to immerse myself so I can paint the fabric, because silk reflects light differently than other fabrics. I'm used to painting from live also, but for me, more the immersion of it. So I could be dancing and I could be touching the silk, just to paint with all senses, not just with my eyes and my hands, but with all the senses involved. Yeah, I mean, if somebody saw me from outside, I'm like, what is she doing? I have a silk in my hand and brushes in the other hand. There's music playing and I might be dancing. And yeah, that's my little secret.
Love it. Perfect. Yeah, I was like, how did I forget to like ask that?
It's a
Ask
very
that.
good question. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I do suggest that to my students, because like when you paint, let's say even with just still life, you're painting a brick and a feather. You don't want the feather to look like as heavy as a brick, and you don't want the brick to look as light as a feather. So I tell my students, go get some feather, touch it, feel it, blow it. Like it's a whole immersive experience. And I like doing that. I buy things from my travels. Like it could be a necklace, it could be a little statue, and I put it there, I touch it. I want to see it to remind myself.
In some ways, then that's kind of like an integral part to your process, no?
Yes, it is. Yes. It's an immersive, I would say it's an immersive process. Yeah.
And with that, I just absolutely want to thank you so much for your time and
Thank
for
you.
bringing us into your world. So thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. Appreciate it.